Okay, hello and welcome everyone. We are now recording and we're live, and yeah, you're very welcome to this evening's webinar, which is all about the topic of mentoring and how mentoring is so important in your early career. So today's talk is going to be recorded. The questions and answers session at the end, they won't be recorded, so you'll have the opportunity, those of you who are here with us live, will have the opportunity to kind of ask our panel some interesting questions. If you just joined now, please don't forget to mute your microphone, or you'll still pick up on the recording. And if anyone has any questions about today's event, my contact details are mgallagher@engineersireland.ie. I guess while we're going along, don't be afraid to add comments into the box, and we can dig into those for questions at the very end. So today's video, it's another video as part of our kind of wide-ranging series of videos for both our graduate audience and our student members. And we'll be exploring loads of different topics that are related to career and your own professional development. And so if you've enjoyed today's talk, then definitely do check back on our recordings. And yet today's talk will be added to the recording afterwards. An important reminder for all our graduate members who graduated in 2020 or before. If you have a graduate membership, you probably have your first Cpt Declaration coming up this weekend. What a Cpt Declaration is that you have to kind of show an account for the 35 hours of continuous professional development. Just one thing to flag: if you have kind of graduated and you only became a member in October, November time, then your profile will automatically work it out that you have to do a pro rata one. And exemptions are available if you were unable to undertake the 35 hours. And I guess you could just fill out the exemption and just explain that you've graduated quite recently. But if you have any questions at all, just email our CPT team. They're incredibly helpful, and that's what you do in that instance. So yeah, I'm going to get right into it and introduce our speakers this evening. We have three fantastic speakers. Our first speaker, who I'm going to ask to share her screen very soon, is Suzanne Flynn. Suzanne Flynn is the facilitator for the Engineers Ireland Effective Mentoring Programme. This programme supports and delivers training on design, development and implementation of formal mentoring programmes within organisations. Suzanne has trained mentors across Ireland, the United Kingdom, the US, South America and South Africa. She has worked with mentors and mentees in many of our engineering companies and also government bodies and county councils. Suzanne has also designed graduate development programs and is an auditor for Engineers Ireland CPT accredited employer standard. So Suzanne, I am going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to you.
Thanks a million, Michal. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my own screen now as well. So hopefully we'll have something good and tangible for you to take away from today's webinar with regard to mentoring. So hopefully you can see that screen. Thumbs up.
Looking good.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm not sure if you're aware, but January is National Mentoring Month. So good timing all round as we go through. We're going to look at the importance of mentoring in your early engineering career. Mentoring itself as an initiative is extremely beneficial and important over an amount of sectors, but actually it lends itself particularly well to engineering. And the reason for that is that engineers are constantly developing. They never stay still. So your career hopefully will be long and dynamic and varied. So therefore, having the opportunity to have a mentor as you go through your career and all the changes that are in your career are extremely important. Engineering is dynamic, lots going on, and lots of opportunities for learning as you go through. So we're going to look at very quickly today, hopefully for you, some of these items here. So we're going to look at the definition of mentoring. What exactly is mentoring and what does that mean? Sometimes it can be a little bit blurred and we're not 100% sure what it is. The strategic goals of mentoring. So what we'll look at there is the strategic goals for you as a mentee, for the mentor that you're going to have, but also for the company that you're working within, and if they have a formal mentoring program and an opportunity for you to have a mentor there. We look at the benefits of mentoring for you as mentees. We'll look at setting a goal or objective when working with a mentor, which is usually important to make sure that you get the best from that opportunity. And also then we'll look at next steps. What exactly can you do to identify a mentor and to begin to work with a mentor as you go forward? So definition of mentoring. There are hundreds of definitions of mentoring, but this particular one works extremely well, and it's one we use within our training when we're working with mentors. So mentoring in organizations is a specific relationship between two individuals based on a mutual desire for our learning and development. So the two people in that relationship is yourself and your mentor, and no one else. It's a confidential relationship between those two. It's a mutual desire for learning and development. The learning and development is yours, and the onus and the priority is on your learning and development. But it's good to note as well that mentors get an awful lot from the process as well, and also can learn from you, from your approaches, from what you bring to the table, from your thought processes. So it is a mutual collaboration between both parties. It's a non-reported form of assistance and replaces none of the organizational structures in place. In other words, it does not impinge or undermine your manager in any way, shape or form. It doesn't, it's not part of the HR process. It's a people initiative that works alongside those other supports that you have within the organization. Its functions coalesce around knowledge exchange and behavioral change. Anybody working in learning and development knows that the golden nugget of learning and development is behavioral change. Do you change the way you do things after you've had access and the opportunity to work with a mentor? Do you think differently? Do you approach things in a different way? The strategic fit that we spoke about a little bit earlier on is really a three-way part, but you need to look at the strategic fit for the organization or the company that as graduates you've begun to work in, or the company that you're choosing to work in or hope to work in the future. So mentoring is always aligned to the strategic goals of the company itself. So that it will have its vision, its mission, its values, what the company or organization wishes to achieve. And mentoring is a really important and vital part of that. By having mentors for mentees, for graduates coming into an organization, it really helps to embed the vision, the mission, the values of the organization. And also it should always be aligned to the strategic goals of your organization. Is there a tangible benefit to it for you, for the company that you work for? Research has shown, and there is a lot of research around mentoring and continues to be a lot of research around mentoring as well. It is really underpinned by a lot of research and theoretical underpinnings. So it's not just something that sort of comes out of the air anywhere. There's a lot of research done on it. At the moment, there's research being undertaken to see how mentoring has changed, considering we're all now being mentored in a virtual space at this moment in time. So the benefits of mentoring are myriad, as it says here. For individuals such as yourselves, studies have shown that good mentoring can lead to greater career success, including promotions, raises, and increased opportunities. I think it's important to note that mentoring is not just for career success. In other words, that you are guaranteed a promotion or something else in your career. It's much broader than that. But it helps you to work on your confidence, your knowledge, your ability to take different approaches or thought processes, and your self-confidence. And obviously, if all of us get more confident at what we do, and we know what we're doing and we feel confident in that, well, then that can lead to promotions and career development as we go through. 79% of millennials see mentoring as crucial to their career success. Organizations that embrace mentoring are rewarded with higher levels of employee engagement, retention, and knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing is a huge component of mentoring, and the ability, having a mentor is a great conduit for knowledge sharing, both from that mentor, but also for you as well as a mentee. Mentoring has proved so beneficial that 71% of Fortune 500 companies offer mentoring programs to their employees. Michal mentioned Engineers Ireland's CPD accredited employer program, and that is a program that has a framework that has 7 criterion attached to it. And one of the criterion 4, is mentoring. And that really shows how much Engineers Ireland as an entity and as a professional body supports and promotes mentoring for engineers as they move through their career. It's hugely important to that dynamic as you move through. Another really good benefit of mentoring and having a mentor for those of you here today is knowing the culture of your organization. So your mentors will tend to be more familiar with the culture within the organizations that you're working in or hope to work in. So culture really is about informal and the formal and informal structure of a company. Or another way of describing culture is how are things done in the company you work for? What's expected? How do things get done? And knowing the culture and being more familiar with the culture within an organization or the new company that you've joined is hugely beneficial for you. It's like finding the way to maneuver, finding your path through the company that you're now working with. And mentors who are obviously very aware of the culture within the company will be able to support you in that knowledge. Some of the other benefits, and there are a lot, it facilitates accelerated focused learning and development. Mentoring really is about your learning and development, but also helping you to focus on what areas of your learning and development you want to work on. So it really is quite focused and accelerates that learning as well. It gives you the opportunity to develop a supportive and positive relationship. I've worked with mentors for over many companies over many years, and a lot of mentees as well. And one of the things that always is very rewarding is that once you have maybe finished that mentoring relationship, you still have somebody all the way through your career who is there to support you and that you've developed a really supportive relationship with. Mentoring assists with problem solving and enables opportunity spotting. Now, what we mean by that is, where is the opportunities within your company? Where are the resources that you require to progress or to do well as you go through? Opportunity spotting is about knowing the resources and the people that you can go to that can help you as you move through your long and varied careers. Mentoring definitely improves self-confidence, your self-confidence, because you have somebody whose only agenda is there to support you in your development, to make sure that you have what you require and help you develop as you go along. It encourages reflection on experience. As a mentee, you'll look at where you are at this moment in time, what it is that you want to work on, where you need to improve. Another thing to look at, though, is where you're doing well, and can you even broaden that and improve that even further? And this mentoring does encourage you to reflect where you are at the moment and where you would like to be. It's also an opportunity to gain insights from a trusted colleague. Very, very much so. You have an opportunity with a mentor to sort of gain insights into their knowledge, their experience, their approaches, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, what they learned from when things didn't go quite so well. How do they think? What approaches do they take? And what can you learn and take from that? Another really good benefit of mentoring is the ability to network, or to help to promote you to network within your organization. Your mentor can be a conduit to introduce you to other people within the company or the organization, and can also put you together with people who can support you in other ways. I like this particular slide because obviously with the current situation, it can be more difficult to network when you suddenly go in or you start in a company. You might not have met others that you're working with, not face to face anyway at this moment in time. So having a really good mentor can also help you to network. I like this slide as well because in a nutshell, it really says what mentoring is. It's help, support, assistance, and guidance for you as a mentee. And that's what you get from the opportunity to work with a mentor. It also helps you to maybe think slightly differently, to maybe have a new mindset. And when we have a new mindset, we can get different results. We can progress in different ways that we might not otherwise have thought of. Another important part of mentoring, or when you identify a mentor, is goal setting. And the responsibility for that is up to you as the mentee. It's a good idea to start thinking about now what you want to work with that mentor. What is your objective? What do you wish to achieve? And like all good goals, they need to be SMART goals. So they need to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It's a good thing to take away, hopefully, from this webinar today. What kind of a goal do you want to work on? Another way to help you with goals that you might wish to work on is to look at the competencies that you require in your role or your the responsibilities within your new job or new role that you've just entered into. And there are a myriad of competencies that you can work on. These are just some of the ones that come up time and time and time again. As graduates, as you start that career journey with your companies, learning what professionalism is, learning what's expected of you, how to present yourself professionally, knowing what that actually means, communication skills. We all think we might know what communication skills are, but we're all now having to find different ways of communicating to make sure that we communicate well. Critical thinking, presentation skills. How do you present yourself as a graduate or as a student about to come into that sort of area? How do you present yourself? How do you get your point across? How do you commute well with others and collaborate with teams you're going to be working with. Networking, commercial awareness, creativity, superior customer service skills. Sort of that's really about how do you work with internal stakeholders and external stakeholders that your companies have developed relationships with. If you're finding it a little bit difficult to maybe think about a competency to work on, then we would suggest that you look at the competencies required for chartered engineer. You're not necessarily going for that title now at this point in your career, but knowing what those competencies are and beginning to identify them and work on them is also a good place, a good point to start. Some of the other ones that come up time and time again would be motivation, effective working, resilience. We are working in difficult times at the moment. And again, for graduates, it's particularly difficult as you are trying to enter the world of work and it's working in a very different way than it has before. So that's a key one for you as well. Stakeholder engagement, client management, depending on the company you're working with. A little one that we bring up always is within mentoring, we use the 80-20 rule or the Pareto Rule. And 80% of the work in mentoring is done by the mentee, 20% of it should be done by the mentor. 80% of the talking within a mentoring relationship should be done by the mentee, 20% are by the mentor. The reason for that is that you own the process. It's your learning and development and your mentor is there to support you. So you take ownership of it and engage in it in the best way for you as you go forward. So quickly for you there, next steps. What are the tangible steps that you can work on to actually have a mentor and to avail of mentoring? So a few questions that I'd love you to ask yourself before you go forward again is, what is the goal and objective that you wish to work on? Is it to be better at collaborating? Is it to understand the culture of the organization better? Is it to understand what it's like to work within certain teams? Is it to be better prepared for rotations that you might have to work within the graduate program if you're working within one? What type of mentor do I need? So once you've identified the actual goal that you want to work on, then what kind of mentor is the best one to work to help and support you in that particular regard? There are different types of mentoring as well. The traditional style of mentoring was seen as somebody who is more experienced and further up that career ladder than yourself, who's going to support and mentor you as you move up through that ladder. But there's also peer-to-peer mentoring, which is where you have a mentor who's on the same level or structure or stage in their development as yourself. I would also say, please look at mentors that are around you as well, not necessarily always ones who are more experienced than you. You'll gain a lot of support and insights from somebody who's also working alongside you in the same type of area that you're in or level that you're in. What do I know? Who do I know that would be a mentor for me? Start thinking about that straight away. Do you know somebody that you think, you know what, that person, I could gain a lot of insights from them. I could really learn a lot from them. They would be of great support to me. And try and identify who those people are. Chances are there's already people in your environment that would be a good mentor for you that you've already been introduced to or know or have come across. What action do I take next? If you are working in a company that has a formal mentoring program, well, then make sure that you do sign up to that program. Also, if not, make sure that you talk to your manager and see, does your manager help you to identify somebody who would be a good mentor for you? So these are the tangible things that you can do straight away to have access to mentors. I will say as well that Engineers Ireland has worked with over 170 companies that have the CPD accredited employer standard. And within those companies, there is formal mentoring and informal mentoring. But there's a great desire to have mentoring programs, especially for graduates, because when you're a graduate, it's seen as a key transition at the beginning of your career. So there is a lot of support and a lot of great mentoring out there in engineering companies at this moment in time. The last one for me is enjoy. Mentoring is a wonderful initiative. It's a wonderful opportunity for mentees, such as yourself, for graduates moving through your career, to have somebody who's there as a sounding board for you, there to support you, there to help you as you move through that career. Another thing to note is that you won't always have the same mentor. You might have a mentor as a graduate, and then you will outgrow that mentor. You will move on through your career. and then make sure you take the opportunity for another mentor, a different type of mentor. Mentors will work with you all the way through a long and varied career. Thank you. I hope that has been of some benefit to you today.
Presentation. I think you presented that from the point of view of what the graduate and what the mentee needs to get out of it, and what they need to do to enter into a mentoring program. But I guess I'm going to speak about my own experience from being mentored, from being the mentor, and perhaps from where there was a lack of mentoring as well. So Michal, could you click to the next slide, please? So just make look, there's probably going to be a bit of repetition between what I'm going to say and what Susanna said, but when Michal asked me to speak at this presentation, I would have known what the word mentor meant, I suppose, but I said I'd look it up in the dictionary, and I just got a very concise explanation as what the word is. So it's because my dictionary is quite small, but it said to advise or to guide. So you can advise somebody how to do stuff, or you can guide them in the right direction. What actually just go down to the very bottom line of this screen here. So language is important. So a subtle nudge in the right direction. So instead of, you need to, I suppose, choose your words carefully. Don't be too aggressive. Don't be too assertive. Maybe with the graduate at the very beginning, give them kind of subtle nudges. Give them maybe positive feedback. I suppose so that they can kind of take it in as best they can. Mentors, so they can, comes in many shapes and forms. I think everyone's kind of familiar with these ones. Sports coach, your trainer, your manager for your sports team. College lecturer can be a mentor. Your line manager at work, so your boss at work, or as Susan has pointed out there, it may not be your actual line manager. It could be one of your peers. It could be somebody who's just in the next kind of tier up in the company from you as well. Mentor can be a family member. It's no kind of one clear definition of who a mentor can be. It can be anybody in your life. So Michal, can you click to the next slide, please? So Michal was very kind to me there, saying I've got 20 years experience. I've got maybe a couple of years less than that. 17 years experience. I graduated in 2003 from UCC. Got a first-class honours degree from Bachelor of Engineering. I thought I was the bee's knees. Coming out of college with a first-class honours degree, I know everything. When I got to site in my first job on a construction site in Cork City, it was like I was, it was a wave of shock. I think it was a baptism of fire for me. Quickly found out that I did not know it all, so I needed to be shown what to do. But in my experience in that first year out of college, I felt there was a lack of mentoring, there was a lack of guidance, and there was a lack of advice from the company. It was a very busy site. There were, I think it was worth 60 million euros at the time. There were probably 200, 300 workers on site, very busy. We were pretty low on staff in the office, so not many engineers on site. Anyone who was there was extremely busy with their own work, and nobody kind of guided me in the right direction. I found, I've written there the opposite of mentoring. I would have been, was spoken down to a lot by my own bosses, the guys in our office, and looking back now, I probably at the time I probably knew that this wasn't right. It just didn't feel right. I felt very uncomfortable in the job. But looking back now, I can say that this was very naive or unprofessional by the company. That they should have kind of recognized the signs in me that I needed to be shown what to do. I was given a scope of work that was it was heavy involvement with industrial relations. Dealing with tradesmen who might be a bit difficult to deal with. Needed somebody with a lot more experience than what I had. But I kind of had to learn myself, and when you're learning yourself, you might go down the wrong route sometimes. When you've got a mentor, they can, like I said earlier, they guide you. They kind of point you in the right direction. So instead of going a bit left, you go a bit right. So the results of, say, my experience in my first year, not being mentored, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd lack of confidence. You know, I didn't know who to ask the questions of. I was kind of afraid of asking the questions, you know, the ones that I needed to ask, and kind of ended up questioning my career choice. You know, spent 4 years in college in UCC, you know, studying hard and probably partying hard as well. So questioning my career choice, have I made the right decision? Did I make the right decision 5 years ago when I did the leaving cert? You know, where do I go next? And I actually ended up leaving the job, and I didn't work for a couple of months after that. When I did go back to work, I actually did something outside of engineering completely. So just might flick to the next screen there, Michal, please. Yeah, so I left the job in Cork in late 2004, and you know, kind of ended up getting back into the industry in 2006. In London. So I had a friend living in London. I had visited him for a weekend about 1.5 years before I went over there, and I was pretty impressed by the life that he was having over there, and he seemed to be getting on pretty well. He and I were in college together. He went to London straight out of college. And I said, yeah, why don't I give this a go? You know, just kind of nothing to lose here. Pack it up, and not so much pack it up in Ireland, but you know, try something new in London. So I went over there. You know, so with my year experience in Cork, I actually, even though I wasn't mentored that well or at all in some cases, I actually had fairly good experience. But I told the company that I went working with in London, I said, I need to be shown what to do here. You need to take me back to the very basics of what an engineer does on site. Now, so I was working, this is again a construction company in London. And what an engineer does, you know, typically in construction sites around the world is they would, you know, use a total station or an EDM, or a theodolite would be the traditional name for it, to provide line and level to the tradesmen on site, or to the trades people, I should say. But I needed to be shown exactly how to do that. And I said this at the very beginning. I said, look, you need to take me back to the start. So you know, I was put with an engineer, you know, one of the experienced engineers on site, and he showed me what to do. So he mentored me, and say I've written there on the second day. So the very second day that I was on site, he knew that I was able to do it. He had done enough in that little kind of 1.5 days of mentoring to let me work on my own. And it was like the dam burst, you know. It was like, you know, that's all I needed, like just a kind of a nudge, that little bit of direction, that little bit of guidance. So that I could head off on my own and do my own thing. Now, of course, I would have still gone back to him and asked him questions, but he was confident. He taught me so that I could go away and do the work myself, and you know, and liaise directly with the guys on site, give them line, give them level, check their work afterwards, and so on. So how I first became a mentor. So yeah, I would have got to the point where I would have taken over from, say, that original mentor. So I would have, you know, gone on to a different site, and I would have been doing the job that he was doing, that he was showing me originally. So when you're working on a theodolite, so the engineer is there with the drawings, and he's you know, you're keying in your points, you're setting out points on the theodolite, but you need someone to hold the prism. So but then you tried what I found maybe the best way for them to understand what they're doing, or you know, the title, the title for that person is, you know, the chain man. I keep saying men and men, like, because everyone on the site were males basically. But yeah, the chain man, so he's holding the prism. So I said, you know, it might be a good idea to show them exactly what I'm doing on this side of it. So I was always at the tripod with the theodolite. They're always at the other end, marking the floor, marking the deck. So I said, yeah, maybe if I start explaining this to them from my side, they'll understand better exactly what they're doing. And the reason, the whole point behind that was that'll actually make my job easier as well. So, you know, I used to take them aside and go through the exact reasons, you know, coordinate geometry I've written down there. So go back to basic mathematics that we would have studied in college. That's what you use in engineering for setting out anyway. So would have gone through step-by-step guidance. And I've got something in inverted brackets there, teaching using tactiles. It's just a term I came up with yesterday when I was doing up the slides. What I mean is, so let the students carry out the actions while the mentor talks through the steps. So instead of me pressing the buttons on the theodolite saying this is how you do it. If you show somebody that way, what I found anyway, it's very hard for them to remember what you're doing because they only look at you pressing a lot of buttons. So what I would do is I'd set them in front of the tripod at the theodolite, and I would stand next to them and I'd say, press this button. I'd let them press it. That's what I mean by teaching using tactiles, because they're remembering the steps because they're actually doing the physical work or doing the physical activity of pressing all the buttons and going through the steps that way. This is easier for a student to remember the steps. Why did I teach them? Actually missing the bottom of this. Yeah, I'm missing the bottom of the screen there. But why did I teach them? The reason I taught them was because it would be easier for them to understand what they were doing, and as a result, they would actually start enjoying their work a bit more. Next slide, Michal, please. So yeah, following London, I said I'd head further afield, so I went to Australia in 2008. Went for a year and a half and came back 7.5 years later. So in Australia, I worked in a few different types of jobs and worked with a civil engineering company, and then I found my feet with another construction company then, and I spent almost 6 years with them in Sydney. And what I've written there is different forms of mentoring. I think Suzanne touched on this as well earlier on. Different forms of mentoring, different ways of learning. So you may not, so Suzanne mentioned the mentoring programs where you're assigned a mentor, but it doesn't always happen that way either. You come across people in your career that you kind of click with, you have a good relationship with, you can have a free-flowing conversation. If they're on a specific type of work, or if they're specialists in their side of the industry, in my case construction, and you might be kind of new to that part of the construction, you can start asking them questions about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And kind of looking back now, again, I would have had a few mentors in that regard without realizing it at the time. I would have learned a huge amount of information, or that would have helped me in my career path, especially in Australia. So mentoring from a site manager, construction, you get different characters. You get characters that are difficult to deal with. I suppose like 17 years ago when I entered the industry, it was possibly a little bit different, and now is probably a harsher environment than what it is now. Definitely 20 years before that, it definitely was a lot harsher. You kind of definitely learn by being thrown in at the deep end, but not always either. So I've written there, site manager. You could be paired with a guy that kind of wants to show you how good he is, I suppose, and by doing that, he wants to make you learn what he's doing as well, because that makes his job easier. So him as the mentor, me as the mentee. So, and learning from a fabrication workshop manager, something you wouldn't really expect, but mentoring again, to advise or to guide. So like this fabrication workshop manager is one particular chap I can remember. So yeah, he would have explained the processes very, very clearly to me that nobody else was able to, because they weren't experts in the field. But that would have helped me in my decision making, my dealing with the client, my dealing with the subcontractor, my dealing with the steel erection crew on site as well. Mentoring from a project manager, that's how does a project manager mentor you? They show you what to do, how to do it, so that the work is done properly and efficiently, so that the project can flow easily. I put in red text there, don't be afraid to ask a question. Why do I say that? Shows willingness to learn, shows confidence in your own ability to admit you don't know it all. And that's a key thing as well. Like, Suzanne mentioned as well, like mentoring is not just for when you're a graduate, when you're 1 or 2 years out of university or college. You can continue throughout your life. Like, you can just keep going to every, years and years down the line. And I still need a bit of mentoring, but even at this stage, I'm sure everyone throughout their career needs a bit, from whether they be from their peers or relations, or people who used to work with the company who might be now retired. You could have a person 55 years of age ringing up a guy 70 and ask him, what way did you used to do this, or give me some advice on this. So next slide, Michal. So just a bit more. So me as a mentor. So just give an example of when I would have acted as a mentor. So Wollongong Private Hospital construction project, just a project I worked on for 6 months. The company I worked for actually had 2 sites next door to each other. I worked on a car park site. The private hospital site was next door. So I worked on my site for a year, and I would have known some of the guys on the site next door. And I mentioned this Fahad. So Fahad is he was a young chap who worked on the private hospital project. So I would have, met him maybe once or twice a week, for 5 minutes at a time when I was working next door. But when I got put onto this job, I would, see him every day. I was working with him. But I've written there. So he was a second-year cadet working with the desk. So the company I was working with in Australia, what they used to do, they used to take on these first-year students in first year in university, and they'd be doing a part-time course. So even though it was still an honours degree, but it was part-time studying. So they used to work with us on site for 3 or 4 days a week, and then be in college the other 2 days and do some night classes. And I think it was a very, very good system actually, because so this guy was 18 or 19 years of age, and he's working on a construction site. He's learning from the very beginning, and it's a great way of learning it, I think. So he's answering calls, he's ordering materials, he's stocking up the beer fridge for a Friday afternoon. And what they do is maybe into their second year, the project manager will give them a small package of works to coordinate, like small signage package that might be worth say 50,000 euros or something of a package, on a 50 million euro job or something like that. So not a whole lot of input needed, but still you need to know what you're doing. So Fahad, I think he was given, if I remember right, he was given a small internal fencing package. So there was a car park underneath the hospital, so there was a bit of fencing needed in the basement. And I was there for a couple of weeks, and I remember people saying, Fahad, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's useless. Like, what are we going to do with him? And I was thinking, we shouldn't really be saying that. I was looking at him and saying, he might be asked to do something, and I kind of see him scratching his head afterwards. Like, and I said, I'm going to head over to this guy here and just have a quick chat with him. And so, he wasn't given any guidance on how to manage the package. So I spotted that, and I said, right, so, without I saying it to anyone or anyone saying it to me, I said I'd go over to Fahad, and I asked him, so how are you getting on, Fahad? How's that package going? How's the contractor going? And when's the work starting? Has he got his drawings back to you? Have you got your drawings to him? And instead of me kind of saying, right, I'm going to sit down here and I'm going to tell you what to do, I said, like in subtle language, I said, okay, maybe let's give him a call and see what he's doing. And have you written that email to him yet? So okay, so let's sit down here together and just write the email there, and I'll just go through with you if I had, just make sure everything, the content is right, make sure it's written in a professional manner, make sure he's got enough information, make sure you ask a question on the bottom so he needs to get back to you, give him a timeline to get back to you, maybe chase up with a phone call an hour or two later. And again, teaching using tactiles, so yeah, like I said there, I sat next to him, let him do the typing on the keyboard, let him, save the drawings on a certain place in the server, stuff that he wasn't shown. And again, so my last line there, and that's why senior members of the company need to be able to recognize when somebody needs mentoring. So like, not all companies will have a mentoring program. But I think like there needs to be an onus on this more senior personnel to spot, to either kind of encourage mentoring, whether it be official or not, but maybe to spot it as well when a young graduate needs to be mentored. Can you hop on to the next slide now, please? Yeah, this is my last one. So yeah, the benefits of mentoring. I think we've gone through everything there, but yeah, I've just picked out one, for example. Benefits of mentoring. Yeah, so you end up knowing what you're supposed to be doing. You're kind of directed in the right path. Why is that important? It's important because you make more money for the business, and that's ultimately what it's all about. I think I know there's personal development and all that, but why is personal development important? You're working for a company. The company is there to make money, and at the end of the day, if you can do your job right, then you make more money for the business. And that's the last one. That's the last screen that I have. Thanks, Michal.
Thank you so much. And yeah, always important to finish on the bottom line. And I think there's some excellent insights from you. And I guess one kind of common thing that we get back from our recent grads is the fact that it is such a challenge to kind of build up their CPD hours during the year, like when they are on site and stuff like that. So yeah, just another thing to remember is that your mentoring hours that you're kind of receiving or getting, like they can be counted towards your CPD hours when you're doing your vital declaration. Okay, well, yeah, thanks so much, Michael, and I'm delighted now to hand it over to our final speaker of the evening. So I am handing it over to Chris Wroblewski. Chris Wroblewski is an engineer with 20 years experience across different sectors. So Chris, I'm going to start sharing my screen here for your presentation if you want to take it away.
Very much.
I can hear you.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for holding on to the last part of the day here. So I've only got a few slides, so I'll try to get through these and keep some time for the Q&A at the end. My journey has been interesting when I start to think about putting these slides together over the past almost 20 years now. And a big part of that is learning and development, like Michael touched on. For me, it was definitely, when I think about mentoring, it's about connecting, learning, and developing. So what's that done for me? Well, you'll see some letters after my name, and I'm not going to bore you with the details of that, but commonly people like to brag about their letters. I'm not going to do that other than to say that I got some qualifications and some certifications. All of that was from learning and developing, and ultimately from listening to people and from seeking help from people. So when I thought about this today, I was thinking, how do you capture mentoring? What does it mean to me? So the impact of a positive mentoring mindset, both in professional and personal development, is a real opportunity in realizing your true potential, pursuing your interests and nurturing passions that can flourish. You'll notice I didn't mention jobs, promotions, money. And I think it's important to re-emphasize that mentoring is about you as a person in all facets of your life. That is also work. It is also your personal life. It's also your ambitions and your personal desires and your personal subjects, whether that's sports or hobbies. Next slide, please, Michal. Why my interest? Like I say, my journey has involved a lot of mentoring. I've come through a number of corporate environments where I was lucky enough to have the backing of large corporate bodies that have in-house mentoring programs as well as development programs. I've had exposure to a number of professional bodies like the Engineers of Ireland, like the Project Management Institute and others, where learning and development is largely promoted and it's part of your growing. I've experienced mentoring as an individual, working through my own development. As you become senior and you take on more responsibility, you tend to look out for the new guys coming into the team and to help them work their way through the development process professionally to become a better engineer, to become a better, more skilled at what they're doing, and to work their way through the company, basically. So I suppose I've gathered a passion for personal development and well-being generally, as well as mentoring throughout that time. So it's something I try to do by nature now with people I know and peers I know and day to day. And over that 20-year cycle, when I start to think about my journey from, you'll see it at the bottom there, I started out college in Ireland, in Donegal. I went on to Edinburgh University. I went into a civils company. I then took an opportunity to travel to Canada, to take a few months of time out. I came back and I'd done a master's degree in Glasgow, which ultimately seen me working in the oil and gas sector. Spent some time in Houston working as an oil and gas engineer, had some travels through Asia. I then became self-employed as a freelance engineer. And last year with COVID and being more restricted, I decided I should do some online studies with the time as well. So I done a postgrad from UCD. Now, what's next? I don't know, but what I do know is that all through this journey, it's involved reaching out to people. It's involved checking in with people. It's involved checking in with myself to see, well, what am I interested in now? What do I want to learn next? How am I going to learn that? And sort of, it's your own journey essentially. So by not thinking about it too much in terms of being rigidly a program of stepping through a job, think about it more as a program of stepping through your own life's adventure, really, because that's where ultimately it all comes down to. So it's never a straight line. It's a trajectory of up and down, back and forth, and some opportunities will come along, and it's knowing that if you take those opportunities and listen to people that have experience, it's ultimately going to take you somewhere as well, and you'll learn from it. Next slide, Neil. Thank you. So why mentoring? I think by now you'll have seen from Suzanne and from Michael, there's a lot to gain from deciding to take up mentoring and to reach out to a mentor. And I want to strip it back a little bit, because for me it was more about understanding that as humans and as human beings, we're naturally inquisitive. We're inquiring all the time. We're learning all the time, whether we know it or not. And we're teaching people all the time, whether we know it or not too. We're influencing. And from the last year alone, you'll have seen how important connections are. Isolation, the impact of isolations, the motivation, the importance of keeping motivated. And a lot of people have used that time to make some so-called gains, whether that's professional or personal. And it's given us time to focus in on things, to look at our ambitions and consolidate where do we want things to go, and how do we want to learn, and how do we want to develop next. So that leaves us in a good place for formalizing that into mentoring, reaching out, connecting with a mentor, setting up a learning curve and developing through that and holding yourself accountable. Next slide, please. So really, to wrap it all up, in my own practical tips for you guys, and I know a lot of you are on, I suppose, the early days of your career, the early days of your development. Maybe you know where you're going, maybe you think you know where you're going, maybe you haven't a clue. But what you can do is to start from today. You've already started, but seek out, what do you have? What, if you're working for a company, what have they got? They may have mentoring tools, they may have support programs. Find out what they are. Within Engineer Ireland, you have a whole range of things. You have a support network, you have a network of people that you can reach out to and engage with. You have peers. You may not consider them as mentors, but they're anyone who is outside of your immediate circle, or even in your immediate circle. You can reach out to them and ask them to be a mentor to you if you see that there is something they can help you with. Become accountable. Start to set yourself goals, give yourself targets, and review those so that you know that you're making some progress on whatever that is. And a good way to do that, I find, is to journal it, whether you're doing it online, whether you're doing it in a book, whatever. Write it down, revisit it often, and reflect on it to see, is it making sense? From that, you should be developing. You should be able to see yourself developing. You should be able to see things that you can explore more. You can see where you're learning, and you can try things that you maybe didn't even think about trying. Reaching out to people is, for me, very important. And I find that things like LinkedIn cannot be underestimated. There is millions of people you can reach out to on LinkedIn, all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of people. They could be from your university, from your college, from your industry, or completely outside your industry. Reach out to them. Don't be shy. The worst that can happen is you won't get a reply. And most of all, enjoy it, because ultimately what you're going to get from this is for you. Yes, it can benefit the company you're working for sure, but ultimately this is for you. You can take what you learn, what you develop. You can travel, like somebody has asked there. You can use the developing journey in itself to make yourself more employable elsewhere and to reach out into different companies in different countries. So the whole aspect of mentoring means you will learn, means you will develop, means you will grow, and means you'll have more opportunities. And that is, for me, the key takeaway, is that you have more opportunities. That's my view on mentoring. I hope there's some interesting questions, and I'll leave it there. Good on my good.